Hello, welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. We have another 3 stories for you today. Start using icebreakers to talk to customers to get them to buy stuff? You got it. Do you trust us? And I've been using this company's products since the late 50s. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Alright, let's get started. Our first story. Start using icebreakers to talk to customers to get them to buy stuff? You got it. This story is over a decade old, back when I was fresh out of college and dedicated to doing nothing important for as long as possible. I worked for an electronics store, a big one, and I lasted there for about 18 months before I realized I was wasting my time on garbage pay that I ended up blowing on games and movies. My manager, Bob, but not really, was a pretty decent guy, and I never had too many complaints about him, although he was wasted at that particular store because he was a pretty good manager. I could tell he was getting a lot of flack from the GM, Jim, but not really, because home theater, sales were stagnant, clarification, good but not growing, and not hitting our ridiculous quotas. I worked from the mornings until the afternoons, when there were maybe 10 people visiting the department in total, and you could tell that 8 of them were just watching TV, waiting for their spouse's cell phone plan to be activated. Unfortunately, since there was so little foot traffic, management's decision was to drill into us how to use every marketing/customer manipulation tactic to encourage people to buy things. I was a good salesperson, and I could sell the shit out of home theater using tactics such as getting customers to use their imagination about their options or presenting new options in ways they hadn't considered. I listened, I learned about their needs and what they were looking for, and they frequently left the store with something completely different than what they thought they needed. I recall that the number of returns I had was so small that I could probably count them on both hands over 18 months. I, however, was completely fucking disinterested in marketing tactics, sales tactics, or manipulating customers for upsales. This meant upselling or changing how I communicated with them to speak their language in a way that marketing showed increased sales but was blatantly manipulative. Fuck that. So, when Jim tells Bob about their new push to encourage customers to buy things they normally wouldn't buy, he knows I'm going to be a challenge, but he does a pretty good job of trying to convince me. He comes to me, and we have a floor meeting, and he asks me to try breaking the ice with the customers by chatting them up a little about topics unrelated to their viewing habits, home theater, etc. to get them to like me enough to want to make a purchase. MC time. I was ready to quit and move on, and I was no longer interested in playing the game. He wanted me to try breaking the ice with people, so I started flirting with all the customers. Black, white, guy, girl, rich, not rich, old, not old. Everyone got a smile and a compliment about their outfit, and I'd compare them to a celebrity they reminded me of, if possible. I was good at it too. I kept it completely mild and inoffensive. Our uniforms were blah, and I wasn't really trying, but on more than one occasion, a bored older woman or housewife gave me their phone number. Our overall numbers started going down because I was busy chatting with customers rather than making sales, so eventually, I got hit with a secret shopper and the jig was up. Bob finds out about this from Jim, and I can hear him laughing from across the store before coming to my department to ask me to go to the back of the store for a private meeting. He wrote me up for inappropriate communications with customers. I told him I wouldn't sign the write-up report because I received no directive saying I couldn't flirt with customers. I wasn't violating the employee handbook, I made sure, and I never said anything that was offensive or sexual, even though several customers took it in that direction. But more importantly, I was giving my 2 weeks notice, but if the write-up was a deal breaker, I could leave now. Bob was sad that I was leaving but understood. Jim was pissed that I was leaving because I was a good earner, even though the department goals were ridiculous. There's not a lesson from this for managers out there, so don't read into it. I was an acerbic jackass. Our next story. Do you trust us? Now comes the craziness. The VP brought in a group therapist to meet with all of the managers. We learned about team building and that a good team has a foundation of trust. We had several managerial meetings after this, where our old director and the VP would grill the mid-level managers about trust. We were asked bluntly, who doesn't trust us? Everybody was afraid to speak up. My anxiety was now through the roof. I had to be put on medication just to help me get out the front door to go to work. I couldn't quit because I needed health insurance for my family. Pre-Obamacare. Now comes the malicious compliance. Not too malicious. They continued to berate us about how trust was key over several meetings. Who doesn't trust us? I finally raised my hand. You asked, so I'll answer you, I said. I don't trust you. I've been in meetings where you belittled and made fun of our staff in front of vendors and clients. Who knows what is being said about me when I'm not in the room? You have unrealistic expectations and the lowest morale of any place I've worked. Trust needs to be earned. They were a bit shocked that I had answered them. I was fired within 2 weeks. I was well liked by my colleagues, which meant that whatever trust still out there crumbled immediately. They replaced me with a consultant from the same software company. He was fired within a month. Trust was now completely lost. Within the next year, 75% of my department either quit or retired. Thankfully, I had already started interviewing for positions before being fired. I found one within 2 months and have been there for 10 years. The best job I've ever had. Unfortunately, they're still up to the same shenanigans. Just recently, 10+ years later, the university fired the whole IT division and outsourced them to the same software/consulting company. The whole university is in financial hot water, having to cut 14 academic programs. I switched to a new job. The whole division had low morale, even according to HR. The VP and director berated managers about trust and asked, who doesn't trust us? I spoke up and was fired within 2 weeks. 75% of the department retired or quit over the next year. And our last story. I've been using this company's products since the late 50s. Before I worked at the retail store with the really large pine tables, I was tech support for their devices that were still under warranty. At the store, everyone had to spend between 30 to 90 minutes per shift covering the phone, usually for normal retail store business. Unfortunately, people without warranties like to use that line for tech support. Usually, I could diagnose and fix their issues off the top of my head. That put my coworkers in a bad position, because not all were trained in tech support. Anyway, one customer was being difficult and condescending as I kept trying to redirect his out-of-warranty questions to our tech support services. As he was trying to tell me I obviously didn't know what I was talking about, he said, I've been using this company's devices since before you were born. It's on like a Vita Perone now. I kept asking what the company calls probing questions. It's corporate speak for getting to the bottom of an issue when you're pretty sure you know the answer. Each question I asked included or ended with the term, since the late 50s? Have you checked for dust, lint or debris where the cable connects? Have you recently updated the software? Have you gone through the steps to change your password? Has your carrier/provider changed? It was actually a case of malicious non-compliance because I walked him through what should have been a simple fix when he wasn't actually entitled to help via telephone. Well, that's all for this video. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.